Braxton Garrett is up. Elieser is down. Does that mean anything for the Marlins? Is it going to make any difference to this rotation moving forwards? Myself, Shaun Barrett, we're going to dig into that plus so much more on today's Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, guys? Welcome to Locked On Marlins, your daily Marlins podcast with me, Peter Pratt. Of course, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Miami Marlins _UK. Don't forget the underscore. No TikToks, no Instas, none of that. Twitter only for me, Miami Marlins _UK. And don't forget to subscribe to the pod. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's all there for you, coming at you like Cleopatra daily, Monday to Friday. Unless there's a bank holiday last week and maybe an episode will be missed. But nevertheless, thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. New background as well for me today. As you can see, I am in night mode. I have been removed from the previous bedroom. I'm now into this room. So I've got some dark vibes, some cabin vibes going on today, but it is what it is. It's the Monday episode of Locked On Marlins. And delighted to welcome back, of course, Shaun Barrett is in the house. Shaun, how are we doing?
I'm doing good, Pete. After a week off, it's good to be back and talking baseball with you.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. We didn't speak last week, so that was a rarity for Locked On Marlins. And, everyone's been clamoring for you to be back, so delighted to deliver to the fans what they need. It feels like the perfect time to bring you back because there's so much to get into, not just Elieser Hernandez and Braxton Garrett and that storyline, but we have a Garrett Cooper segment queued up. So, spoiler alert, we're going to be digging into Garrett Cooper, what the Marlins should be doing with Cooper, what Cooper's doing, as well as all other news and notes from the weekend series with the Giants. The Marlins split it 2-2. I'm not convinced that was enough. Nevertheless, the Giants are a good team. You have to beat them. They aren't going to beat themselves, but, 2-2 felt a little bit underwhelming. But nevertheless, we roll. The Marlins keep on rolling. Shaun, for me, the biggest news of the weekend, clearly Elieser Hernandez. He was optioned. They didn't even need to option him in theory, but they decided to option him. And then Braxton Garrett was promoted from AAA. Braxton Garrett then made his first start of the Major League campaign in 2022. Firstly, on Elieser Hernandez, mate, they went with the opener. They tried something different. Richard Bleier opened for him. In reality, Richard Bleier wasn't good either in that role. Richard Bleier hasn't been good all year himself. Nevertheless, they tried it. Bleier, Elieser Hernandez, to me, made a lot of sense. Myself and Alan Witz got into that pregame. But the wheels kind of came off pretty early for Elieser. It ended up being, I think, 8 earned runs from him. I watched the game, and it didn't feel like he pitched that bad, but most people disagreed with that. How did you see things with Elieser? Was time up and this was the end and they just had to make this move? I don't think they had any choice, right?
Yeah, I don't think they did. I think I read something, if it might just been a tweet, but the word malpractice was used. And I thought that was the perfect word as far as the Marlins just couldn't continue to throw him out there every 5 days. The fact that they used the opener, tried to soften it up, get a lefty in and then have Elieser come in as a righty. I think it was a smart idea, but it was too little, too late. It would have been nice to have seen that done 2 or 3 starts before, because that's when we really were sort of seeing the wheels come off for him. I think realistically, yeah, he has to go down. You can't keep throwing him out there. I think realistically, you keep him there for a little while in AAA, have him as an innings guy. You don't want to send him down. You want to keep him going as a starter, just in case the Marlins need him to come up and get 4 or 5 innings, through the dog days of summer. But realistically, it would be nice to see him down there for a long period of time and then come up later in the season, maybe as one of those sort of long men in the bullpen, because I just don't think he's got a huge weakness in his. When you watch him pitch, he's not a dreadful pitcher, but that long ball is just continually a thorn in his side. And said he didn't pitch too badly, and sometimes he looks good, but then you look at the box score and you're seeing 2, 3, 4 in this instance home runs, and you just can't keep giving up the long ball like that. It hurts you so badly.
Yeah,
And in the end, it was time.
it was time. And it's time to remind you guys that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. We're going to talk about that a little bit more detail a bit later on. But Shaun, like you mentioned there, it was time. It was time. They tried it. In reality, time was probably a month ago. We could all see it. I mean, I've watched probably every Elieser start this year, and it's looked the same throughout. Like, it's just a bit too hittable. There just isn't enough deception there. There's just not enough swing and miss. The Marlins are going out there every fifth day. They've got Sandy rolling. Every fifth day in that cycle, they got Pablo rolling. 2 of 5, so 40% of their starts, they're absolutely in the games. The problem for the Fish this year is 60% of the games, they've really been behind the 8 ball, because not only have you had Elieser not doing great, you've then had to mix the match with the Luzardo spot. Plus, you've had Trevor Rogers, who has also been really below par as well. So the Marlins, for all the good in those two starts they have out of the 5, the other 3 come, and that's the problem. That's the way the series are going. They're losing series 2-1 over and over and over again. And it was time for a change. Braxton Garrett, though, the thing here, though, Shaun, was he was the only guy really left. Like, because of the way injuries are shaking up, the way the roster's looking, he was the only guy left. And he wasn't built up to be a full starter. It wasn't a full go for Brax. It was, 70 pitches, 75? But nevertheless, just talk me through what you saw from Braxton in his first start. Did it look any different at 21 or 2020 when we saw him, or was it same old Brax? And, he was hurt by one hit, effectively, the salami. But how impressed were you on this one?
Yeah, another pitcher that struggled with the home run, but he's a lot more sort of vanilla, and by that's not a negative. What I mean is he's not going to go out and strike out a lot of guys. So if you look at his minor league numbers this year, just over 7K per 9. But the interesting thing is the walks, 2.4 walks. So he's one of those guys that he's not going to hurt himself. He's going to go out there and give you representative innings. At the end of the day, his ceiling is probably a 4th or 5th starter. I don't think the stuff's there, but he's a 24-year-old kid, so there is room to develop. If you look at what Sandy has done over the years, he was always a good pitcher, but every year he steps on and gets better and better and better. And Braxton, the stuff isn't electric, but then neither is Sandy, to be brutally honest. So he is a guy that's going to come up and he's going to give you, representative innings. He's going to keep the game close. He's going to end up probably with a 4.5 ERA. But you can live with that. He's not going to go out and embarrass himself. And when you're talking about going down and getting an unheralded prospect, this isn't Eddie Cabrera, this isn't Max Meyer. These are the depth guys that you just have to carry because you're always going to use those innings. He's going to come up and he's going to give you decent innings. And if you can keep a game close, go 4, go 5, hopefully a few starts time, go 6, giving up 2 or 3 or 4 runs every now and then. It is that guy. He's vanilla. He's not. Hernandez is that guy that he blows hot and cold, and when he's cold, the game's over. If you give up 4 home runs, you might as well just turn the TV off and go to bed, and know that the game's done. With Garrett, keep the game close. Let the offense hopefully pick you up, and you don't expect to win every single start from your 4th and 5th starter. But, when you're matching up with another team's 4th or 5th starter, keep the game close and, eke out a win here or there. With Hernandez, we just, you knew going into the game, this is probably going to be a loss. And that's no way to run a baseball team.
Who do you actually trust more on any given day? Do you trust Elieser or do you trust Braxton Garrett?
At the moment, you have to say Garrett because, yes, he gave up that home run, but he was, as you said, he was not fully stretched out. I think realistically, the way that his profile is I like that vanilla approach. When you're talking about a guy that, is at the back end of your rotation, just give me bog standard 4.5 ERA every single game. I'll live with that. With Hernandez, some days he was giving up 6, 7, 8 runs, and then in other starts he pitched pretty well. I think, at the end of the day, he's still a just major league pitcher in talent, but that home run issue that he's got, his stuff isn't that bad that the home runs, he should be getting hit left, right, and centre. But at the moment, the stuff that he's throwing out there is getting hit. And he needs to try and work on some sort of deceptive move or some timing. That's what I'd like to see. Don't just go down to AAA and just continue to throw what you've been throwing, because it doesn't work. You need, get a leg kick in there. Work on something. Because what you're currently doing does not work.
Fair assessment. And listen, Donnie, pre-game, spent some time with Craig Minervini. I thought Craig was excellent in the interview too, asking Donnie about the specifics around the Elieser decision. And Donnie was pretty candid about it. And, as he is, just said, it's been a bit of a rough start for him, clearly. And it became mental for him. And that's what I kind of felt a little bit too. It's kind of in his head. And he said, listen, he just needs a little bit of a break from this, because when you're a starter and you're going good, the momentum keeps building. When you're a starter and it's going bad, you live in your own head, and you go every 5 days, and it just kind of builds and builds and builds to a point where it was just too much in his head, Elieser. And it was time. It was time a few weeks back for me, in my opinion. It was time a month ago to try the opener, and they decided not to, and they left it to now. I like the decision, the Elieser with the Blyer opener. It made a lot of sense. Just didn't work out on the day. And the Giants, let's be honest, as much as their lineup to me looks vanilla, there's no superstars in there, but they hit a lot of home runs as a team. They do. No, there's no one power bat, no big bombs. I mean, Jock Peterson, perhaps the biggest of them, but up and down the lineup, as we saw, they had a salami from the 9th spot. So, that shows home runs, they do come from the Giants, and they really did come against Elieser. Right, we're going to talk about Garrett Cooper very shortly, Shaun. And listen, I'm just going to give you a 1-minute warning that Cooper Loop is coming. But before we do that, guys, reminder, this episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens. So, Athletic Greens, as I've mentioned before, it's a product I've been using literally every day. They sent some to me. I was thinking, okay, cool, it's time to give them a go. And I take these Athletic Greens AG1 every day. Looking for more energy. I'm up way too late watching baseball, so more energy for me. So what is this? What is this stuff? AG1, what is it? It is a delicious scoop, and basically you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. Absolutely everything in there, all of the things designed to help your gut health, nervous system, immune system, your energy recovery, focus, and aging. Perfect for me. So what have you got to do? You got to put your scoop of AG1, mix it up with some water. That is it. And it will be ready to rock and roll for you. So it's now time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills, supplements to look out for your health. No. So to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/MLB network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Shaun Barrett, Garrett Cooper is the best hitter in this Marlins lineup. And for me, it is clear as day, as undoubted. Cooper's been driving this bus. He's been riding this bus like, well, no one's even touching him. He's hitting over 300. Oppo with a boppo yesterday. Coop is the best hitter in the lineup. has anything changed? Is anything changed at all with Cooper, or is it just the fact that the DH is here and it's just a healthy Cooper? And this is what we should have expected all along.
Nothing's changed, and I've got a few numbers to back that up with. I bend your ear all the time about Coop. I love Coop, and I think he's the best player, offensive player on the team. Jazz was scorching earlier in the year, but no, statistically, right now, if there's a few stats you want to use WRC plus. Coop is the best player on the Marlins. Jazz is still, a very good player. But at the moment, the crown is on Coop's head. So I've got a few numbers that I wanted to try and cherry pick some good numbers for Coop because I always like to give him the best opportunity. So 20th of May, 14 games. He's 233 WRC plus is 7th over that period of time in Major League Baseball. And you may recall, maybe you don't, last year, I think it was, there was a stretch where Coop was one of the best players in baseball. I think it was him, Soto, and I forget the other one, as far as WRC plus. It was a small sample size, but look, I'll take what I can when I can get it. Over that period of time, Coop has a 451 batting average, nearly a 1200 OPS. So you're going to say small sample size, so what? Anybody can do that over a period of time. Let's look at his season numbers. These are season numbers. He's 23rd in MLB, top 25 in WRC plus at 139. He's hitting 302, 373, 462. He's nearly hitting 300, 400, 500 slash line. And I actually think that is capable for him. The slugging is slowly increasing. And the walk decay rate at 0.34 is exactly as his career is. His BABIP's a little bit high at 388, but Coop's BABIP for his career is 367. How on earth is that even possible for a guy that has one Major League stolen base? Guys that have high BABIPs typically are speedy guys. I just don't understand how he does it. And probably what it is the quality of contact. His contact this year is even better than it has been previously. His hard hit rate is along the same lines as his career, but his medium percent hit rate is increased, and therefore, obviously, his soft contact has come down. All the numbers that I'm talking about right now for Coop, as far as his average, his on-base percentage, his slugging, you pick a number, and they are literally in line with his career numbers. This is the Coop that I have been trying to pick up for years. The only thing that's changed is he's in the lineup every day. The hit by pitch, he was in the game the next day. He came off last week with a bit of, he came off the field with a bit of a niggle. And, I was ready to jump off a cliff. He's already back in the lineup. He's already hitting. If Coop gets 500 at-bats, then he is going to be by and far the best offensive player the Marlins have had for years.
With that being said, Shaun, there's two follow-up questions. Firstly, should he be hitting in the 2 spot? Does it matter? Clearly, you would ideally like, some more runners on base for Coop, I believe, anyway. And so I think there's a discussion to have here. He spent a lot of time in the 2 spot. Should he perhaps be moving down a spot or two? I'm not completely against the Birdie Jazz 1-2 combo. Birdie leading off, Jazz in the 2 spot, maybe even Cooper Loop in the 3 hole there, perhaps. I even like Aggie in the 3 spot and maybe Coop hitting cleanup. I don't know. It's just something that I've been thinking about. This runners in scoring position thing has dogged the Marlins all year. Let's try and get a few runners on base for Garrett Cooper to come in and blast away. This is the problem with with Soler, with Avi Garcia. They're just too up and down in that spot. It's just a little bit too erratic. I'd like to see Coop maybe slide down a couple of spots, a few more guys at the top of the lineup that can get on base specifically, and let Coop just drive him in. I don't know. Where's your head at? Does it really matter? I don't know. Maybe we're splitting hairs on this one.
I mean, it does matter, but I think realistically, when you're talking about Coop, a player who at the moment, and for his career actually, is a good on-base guy. That if he had any speed, and let's be frank, he doesn't. you'd have him with that on-base percentage, you'd have him leading off. So 2 is the logical sense in the fact that he's a high average, high OBP guy. But now, as that slugging is slowly starting to build up, and it's slowly getting there, I think realistically 2, 3, 4, you could bat him anywhere and he's going to be the most productive guy in the lineup at that spot. There isn't a guy in the Marlins that has that on-base skill to be at number 2 or number 3. If you look at, you want complete players there. You want guys that can get on base and can also, have a high slugging percentage. Coop could play 2, 3, 4. I wouldn't be too concerned. I mean, he started leadoff a couple of games. That was a bit of fun. But at the end of the day, that batting profile fits anywhere.
Yeah, agreed. I'm just intrigued to see the Marlins play it. I think they're always, tinkering their lineups. At the end of the day, Coop's hitting well on the 2 spot. I'm not convinced the lineup spot actually matters to a hitter. You get up there and you've either got runners on base or you haven't. Maybe your approach changes. Other than that, you just crack on. But the Marlins do have a runner in scoring position problem this year. I'd like to see Coop given more opportunities to hit with runners in scoring position. So wait and see on that one. There's a few other news and notes for us to dive into, of course, Shaun. Appreciate those stats. Listen, I'm with you on Coop. If he continues this pace, I mean, this is a top 25 hitter in the league, which would be a stunning result. I'll let you dwell on this other final question around Coop, around whether the Marlins should look to trade him this offseason or even at the deadline. Maybe I know you'll give up a strong defense on that one, but before we do that, guys, reminder, this episode is also brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup, the NHL hockey conference finals, Major League Baseball, and of course, all the latest fighting news from MMA and UFC to boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. And I guess for you, Shaun, the Marlins should never consider trading Garrett Cooper at the deadline, right?
No, I mean, for me, Cooper's a lifer, and I'm biased. I know I'm biased. I just, when I look at it and I try and be objective, and I struggle with that when I'm talking about Coop, I just don't see the purpose of trading him. So if we trade him for a leveraged bullpen piece, and then you're looking at what minor league guys who start bringing up Lewin or, Aguilar and Cassian, I just think when he's as hot as he is, then you keep him, that bullpen piece is not going to improve the team enough to justify moving him, in my sense. And also, the other thing to factor in is if someone's selling a leverage pen piece, then they are sellers. They're not interested in this year. So I just don't see where they would fit Coop in. Yes, he's got a 3rd year of arbitration next year, but I just don't see him as that. I don't see him as that trade piece for a team if they're trying to compete. If Marlins, if in 2, 3, 4 weeks before the deadline, they're out of it, officially out of it, I don't see the reason to trade him then because he's got that other year of arbitration. I just don't see the benefit of moving him. We've got Aggie, who I love Aggie, and he is what he is. I mean, he's just above 100 WRC plus and has been since the Marlins have had him. He's been absolutely a fantastic player for the Marlins since they bought him. He was a waiver claim. They were willing to pay the money. They took the risk, and it's rewarded them. This would now be, in my eyes, the perfect time to then cash in again by trading him. I think, if you're going to trade one of them, that's who I would trade. But obviously, I'm massively biased.
Completely with you, though. I mean, it makes a ton of sense. There's no reason the Marlins need to trade Garrett Cooper right now. They should absolutely not. The funny thing is, the way the roster's constructed right now, this is the roster for the next, 2 seasons, perhaps. Like, there isn't a ton of expiring deals. When they made the move last year with Corey Dickerson, they wanted to free up a spot for Jesus Sanchez. And this is the kind of final topic for us probably to get into today. but caught my eye today. I was looking back. I was trying to work out what was the timing on that. It was earlier in the season where they kind of knew the season was done. Dickerson was hurt, and the deal, I think, was Dickerson and Simba for Joe Panic and someone else. And, I thought Simba was a serviceable reliever for sure. But nevertheless, Kim Ang came on and said the motive for the trade was to make sure there was playing time available, everyday playing time for Jesus Sanchez. And I've got to be honest, Shaun, we're at that point now with Lewin Diaz. We're very, very close to that point where, for me, the Marlins almost need to consider giving away Jesus Aguilar. As crazy as it sounds, if this season in the next couple of weeks doesn't turn around, back end of June, as hard as that will be, the Marlins, I think, should look to give away Aguilar to anyone that will take the money, basically a freebie, send us back a depth piece or something maybe, because we need to have a look at Lewin Diaz. We absolutely do. We're in exactly the same spot as 21 with Jesus Sanchez. I want to see what Lewin Diaz has got. And, I don't think you need to wait until the deadline. Maybe someone gets hurt in the meantime and solves the problem. But for me, we need to have a look at Lewin. He's absolutely scorching hot. The other question you've then got is, what's happening with Jorge Soler? Because, I can see a clear pathway for me where Soler ends up back on the Braves. I can see a massive pathway there where basically we give Soler away to the Braves, and then we want to get a good, decent look at Heyra Encarnacion in some sort of way. We're going to have a look at him, and he's continued his hot streak too. So I think one comes earlier than the other. I think that Aggie will be moved a little bit sooner than the deadline. I honestly believe that. I think, late June, early July, I think Aggie will be moved and we'll have a full look at Lewin. And honestly, I believe there's a pathway to Jorge Soler being back on the Braves. And again, it wouldn't even shock me. This could sound wild, but to balance some of the money, it wouldn't shock me if Adam Duvall is back to the Marlins. Adam Duvall back to the Fish on an expiring deal. The Braves take Jorge Soler and his options, and they roll on, because the Braves are starting to heat up now, but they need someone in left field. Ozuna is not serviceable out there in left field. Soler has been just about okay. They like him. They know him. He's part of Braves history forever now. So, yeah, I can see that going. But just to go back on Lewin, on Aggie, the time is now for Lewin Diaz. We really need to get a look at him, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what he's doing down in AAA, the home runs, the doubles, I think 23 of his 51, that's off the top of my head, hits are extra base hits. He's walking a little bit more than he's usually used to doing. The Ks are manageable. I think at the moment, yeah, you are right. It is that sense of it almost is identical to the situation that the Marlins had last year.
Mm.
And Aggie obviously is still a productive hitter. I think there is a market out there for him. He's got that mutual year option next year, but realistically, mutual year options basically don't mean much. The player is probably not going to take it, or the team isn't going to take it, depending on the number. I think it's about 7.5. And at the moment, I think Aggie is worth more than that.
Me too.
And the fact that the Marlins are in a position where they're looking to move on from a player like that is telling. And I think it is a case of it's now or never for Lewin, as far as they've got to make that move. If they're not looking to move Lewin up and moving Aggie out of the way for that, then they've got to move him, because he can't keep just raking down in AAA. At his age point now, this is where we need to see half a season of play at the major league level, just like we did with Jesus last year. He showed enough last year that we as fans, and evidently the team as well, went, yeah, we can have him as a starting player for us next year. And I think that's where we need to look at with Lewin as well. And with Aggie in basically what is an expiring deal, it's time to cash in, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be intriguing to see the way they play it. It's clear. I mean, I think you've laid out the options perfectly there. Coop, for me, is a no-brainer. You keep Aggie. It's an expiring deal. There's a mutual option that's unlikely to be picked up. So let's just assume it's a rental situation there with Aggie. The question the Marlins need to ask themselves is, do they prefer Aggie? Do they prefer Lewin? And are they happy committing to Aggie financially for the next 2 to 3 years, let's say? I mean, he'll be looking for maybe a Soler type deal, perhaps. in that kind of range, loosely. Are the Marlins happy to commit to that? I'm not convinced. I don't know. Versus Lewin Diaz, sexy glove, looks like he's got all the tools. On a league minimum, they have a guy there. It feels very Marlins for them to kind of flex out of that and move on Aggie. So I think that's the most likely outcome. I feel like it was kind of, it should have happened in the offseason, to be honest with you, but it didn't. Maybe they didn't get back what they wanted as part of that deal. Something didn't go to plan. And the other option clearly as well is, listen, Lewin Diaz is, a lot of teams will like him, a lot of clubs will like him because of the reasons why we like him. If the Marlins look to upgrade elsewhere, and I still think they need to address center field. Like, we can't get away from that. Jesus Sanchez, he's done an okay job, but again, you plonk in Brian Reynolds into center field and push Jesus Sanchez to one of the corners, and all of a sudden, I think the club looks better. Maybe as part of that, you move Lewin Diaz plus an arm or something. I don't know. I mean, Reynolds hasn't had a great year thus far. I mean, haven't really checked in on him. I think he's hitting maybe 220. But the Pirates are kind of trending. They've won a couple of games recently. So nevertheless, going back to the point I made earlier, this roster right now, as it's constructed, there's not a lot of expiring deals in there. It feels quite set. And so if the Marlins want to do something different, i.e. they look at it and go, well, this is now a 70-win roster. Let's say it plays out that way. They need to do something different, perhaps. And, this is one of those options. Maybe you move Lewin, you keep Aggie. I don't know. There's a lot of ways to go. There's a deadline to get through first, clearly. And there's obviously a run-up to the deadline. We're still 2 months away from that, just under. A lot can happen. But from what we've seen with the Fish, I think it kind of feels a bit similar to last year, where they get 2 good starters going, maybe 3 at best, and then the other 2 spots are just so volatile. They just can't string together wins. They get a little bit too hurt. The offense underwhelms, and we're kind of stuck here again in the same spot, but with a much more expensive and committed roster. So a lot of decisions, a lot of interesting subplots here for the Marlins, I think, in the next few weeks. Shaun will just kind of very, very quickly touch on these Nats as well. They're in town for a 3-game series. Clearly for me, the premier matchup, Josiah Gray, Sandy Alcantara in game 2, which is the Wednesday start. But Edward Cabrera getting the start again on Tuesday. So tomorrow's game, Edward Cabrera going. I know we didn't speak directly about Edward Cabrera, but for me, stunning 22 debut in Coors. Strikeouts galore. I was very, very impressed with what I saw from Eddie. What about you on his debut?
Yeah, I mean, it was everything that we would have wanted to happen. He's come up and he looked like he belonged, and he looked like he felt like he belonged. And the stuff is fantastic. I mean, that changeup is insane. What, 94 miles an hour? I mean,
Wild.
there are productive, quality starting pitchers who can't throw that for a fastball. So absolutely elite work, and it's at the end of the day, it's only going to get better. He's so young, and long may it continue. If he really shows some quality stuff, this is almost like allowing us to forget about Sixto. Because when he first came up, we were so effusive with our praise and our excitement, and everything since then has been a negative. Now we've got another arm to be excited about.
Yeah.
And that's, the Marlins just, I don't know how they keep managing to do it. You got Maya, you got Perez. I mean, it's a never-ending situation where they've got quality pitchers coming up. I mean, there's only 5 spots in the rotation. The Marlins are going to have a genuine issue in the next year, 2 years, where they're saying we've got 6, 7 starters who deserve to be in the major league rotation. Now, this year and last year and every year is a good example of you can never have enough arms. But I genuinely think the Marlins are going to start really pushing the boundaries on, can you have too many arms?
Yeah, they are. But, going back to the point we just made, the offense still isn't good. In general, that's probably a little bit unfair, because I did, the Craig Mish pod, the Swings and Missions, sorry, I should say. It's not just Craig, Jeremy Taché on there as well. But, Dan Greenlee on there highlighted to me, hey, the offense, Major League, was maybe 12th overall offense. I was like, wow, didn't even realize that it was sitting there maybe 12th in Major League Baseball. So, maybe we've kind of slandered the offense a little bit too much, and maybe the offense hasn't been the problem. But I don't know. Watching the games, I haven't felt like the offense has been over impressive. But I don't know. It was an interesting conversation, nevertheless. And clearly they feel happier with the talent around. But for me, I still feel that hole in center field exists, and so they're gonna need to move an arm or two because there's going to be too many arms, but they need to upgrade elsewhere. There has to be upgrades coming down the pipe, and I think clearly one of these arms to try and get a center fielder has to be the way. So, yeah, I was very, very, very excited what I saw with Cabrera, and it reminded me. I'm glad you mentioned it. It reminded me of one of the starts Sixto Sanchez had, maybe his debut, maybe his second game against the Rays or the Blue Jays, one of the two. And I remember just watching the game live, completely blown away by it, tweeting in a similar way, going, 9 outs, 7 Ks. Like, it was just both of them. It was electric stuff. Like you said, that 94, 95 mile an hour changeup is just pure filth. I loved what I saw from Eddie Cabrera, and I really hope he kicks on. And there's no tougher place to get your season up and running than Coors. He did it with aplomb, no doubt. He's going to have the Giants to handle tomorrow. Sandy Alcantara going, and then we got Trevor Rogers going. Big series for Trevor Rogers. I think, he really needs to right the ship. It's been a real struggle for him. But, for me, with this kind of the way the rotations line up, the Marlins should be looking to sweep. And to be honest with you, they need to sweep the Nats here. They truly do. It's a tough road trip then, heading into Houston and then Philly. The Phillies have caught fire as well. So, it's going to say a lot about the Marlins these next 3 series, I believe. Can they sweep the Nats? Can they go on the road and do some damage? I think they're all questions that, we're going to enjoy seeing. Hope everyone stays healthy. And the rotation, I feel, does look a lot better with, Sandy, Pablo, Trevor, Eddie, and Braxton Garrett. I think it's a better mix than we've had all year. The other interesting wrinkle to this as well, Shaun, and, not to labor this one too long, but Luzardo's been on the IL now for just under a month. He's still not throwing. At the time it felt like this was going to be maybe the minimum 15 days. Hasn't worked out that way. He's still not throwing. So concerns about Luzardo in terms of this time frame and the return this year.
I think there is. I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, I think realistically, when you look at it at the rotation, you've lost 2 of your starters, essentially, 1 to injury and 1 to effectiveness. As far as a plan B goes, it's not too bad. Now, as you said, Rogers, I wouldn't say he struggled, though. I mean, I think this just is, we're starting to see more and more of what Rogers actually is. If you look at his numbers from the second half of last year, they're almost identical to the numbers that we're seeing now. It is a case of, I think maybe we got a bit too ahead of ourselves, and that first half was elite, and it was hard not to get swept up into it. But he is still so young, and if he hadn't had that elite first half, would we be worried about him, or would we just say he's a pretty decent young starting pitcher? And I think that's the way I look at it now. Now he can improve, of course. He's so young. He's going to develop and he's going to get better. But I'm not waiting on him being that low 2 ERA starter, going forwards. I think we just got to be a little bit more patient, be a bit more understanding about how hard it is to pitch at that age in the major leagues, and just he's a pretty decent number 3 starter in the major leagues, and there's absolutely no shame in that.
No, I'm not convinced he's completely pitched to number 3 levels this year, but I think that's a really fair assessment. We probably got a little bit ahead of ourselves with Trevor. The regression has been real. Mel Stottlemyre on the other side is real, and he will absolutely eke out what he can there with Trevor, no doubt, and the development will continue for sure. He's still very, very young, clearly, has all of the tools. We've seen them when it clicks, it fully clicks, so it's great to see. And the same happened with Luzardo. Obviously, he's been hurt now, and we're interested to see what the timeline looks like. But yeah, it's one of those years again. Luzardo down, Elieser underperforming, Trevor, let's say regressing is maybe a fair way to describe it. Pablo and Sandy still doing their thing. But nevertheless, Shaun, we are 40 minutes in, so I think it's probably the right time to say goodbye. I did want to ask about the closing situation because we've seen Tanner Scott back in the closer role as well, but we don't really have time for that one today. So next time we speak, we'll dig into the closing role. That is us out of here on Monday's edition of Locked On Marlins. Thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. It's myself, Peter Pratt, and Shaun Barrett checking out. We're back tomorrow, of course, because, well, it's a Tuesday, and Rob Langley is joining the show from Nationals UK, so we're going to be previewing more in depth the Marlins National Series. Until then, guys, enjoy the off day. I'll be back tomorrow.